Hello and welcome. My name is Elliot Hayes, and this is the Creating Great Presentations program. And what it's designed to do is to really help people who need to put together presentations on a regular or semi-regular basis and help them go through a process that will create the structure, the content, the order in which you deliver your presentation very, very quickly. I remember when I first started to put together an important presentation, I was utterly petrified at the thought of presenting, and I did way too much in terms of preparation. I overused the time, ended up wasting time, which at the time I probably wasn't as busy then. I got away with it. These days that just would be a luxury. So all our products and services at findtime.com.au are targeted towards busy people who value time and want to get results more quickly without spending longer than necessary. This is about doing what you need to create a great presentation that really resonates with your audience and gets the results you're after. So without further ado, let me start here by looking at the file that you will have downloaded, which you would have got when you purchased this program. And in typical style, a lot of what we do, we try to condense into one page, coupled with tutorials like the one you're listening to now, so that it acts as a very simple cheat sheet or reference tool when you're out there at work, in the office, or on site, or in someone else, in your client's office, delivering a presentation. These are the materials that will help ground you and get you focused, because the ability to prepare a sequential message with information that doesn't overload but still connects with the audience, it's a tough challenge. And there are a lot of simple techniques that when you put them together really improve your chances of success in this. So the first thing we're going to look at here, and I'll just zoom in to the first part, you see there it's asking about the audience profile. And to be very fair to some people, particularly those who get quite nervous, and there's no doubt presenting can be a stressful experience. Particularly, I actually read it recently, and I'm trying to think of the name. I think it's austrophobia. It's actually a fear of presenting to a group of people. And the old joke you've probably heard is that some people would rather be dead than give a speech, meaning at a funeral they'd rather be in the casket than actually giving the eulogy. And I know some people like that. I also know others who are supremely confident and believe they were born to do presentations. What I most commonly meet are people in the middle. People who don't necessarily feel super confident, they don't really hate it, but they're somewhere in the middle and they'd like a leg up on how to do it. And what you're going to learn here are some techniques of the masters and what they do to make it look so effortless in putting together information that connects with an audience. And that starts with the audience profile. Who are they? What do they think? What are they feeling? What do they know? What time of the day will you be presenting? And let me break down that a little bit more. So who are they and what are they thinking? Well, let's say you're going to give a presentation to a team of people who work for a manager, and the manager has asked you to come and present to them. A great question would be, well, are they looking forward to that? Are they pleased they're listening? They've got a guest speaker coming in. Are they feeling annoyed and insulted that you're coming in and, in their mind, teaching them how to suck eggs? Do they feel like they are enthused or motivated, or do they feel insulted and a little put off? Now, I don't want to depress you if they're feeling insulted and negative towards your presentation before you go in, but you can see how knowing that in advance, you can prepare your strategy a little more. I had one group when I was presenting, when I did this preparation, and they told me very honestly, look, the people you're going to present to, they have been told to be there. They have no choice. They're very experienced in their role, and they feel like this is a manager just ticking a box, and they feel somewhat insulted that they have to come along to this program that you're presenting at. Now, once I got over my initial, shall we say, fear of having to present to that kind of group, I started to think to myself, well, if that's how I was feeling, how should the presenter open the presentation in a way that doesn't put me off further, in a way that works with some of my concerns and fears there, that actually will help open the door to some kind of fruitful discussion? So what I did, I'll tell you about my strategy a little bit later on, but all of this is firstly the raw material. You want to know everything you can about the person sitting in front of you, and you might have a spread. You might find you have people of different ages, different genders, different cultures, different skill level, knowledge base in different areas, and again, you would factor that into your opening. You might say in your opening presentation, and whether you are 18 years old or 55 years old, what I'm going to go through today will have some tips you can use that will help with what you're doing next in this area. You factor all that into your opening sentence, and that can help increase your chances of succeeding and having information that connects with the audience. What do they know? Now that's a funny one. I get some funny looks when I raise that in the workshops that we run. But know basically refers to an attitude they have. So for example, one group I had, if they saw me in a suit with a tie, the first connection in their mind is lawyer. And when they think lawyer, they have an attitude toward lawyers where they know something about lawyers. Now to you or I, that might be an opinion. I have a number of friends who are lawyers, and I know this is not the case, but with them, based on their experience, they had a bias against lawyers, where they know if you're a lawyer, and they had all sorts of other thoughts associated with that, which mostly, I've got to say, were negative. One time I had to do a presentation to a group of video game designers, and they said to me very, very specifically, the organisers, they said, do not wear a suit, or you will put them off straight away, because they have a different viewpoint of people in suits. Because this was a very creative, as well as technologically skilled group of people. This was just a different kind of costume I needed, if you'll pardon that phrase, to go and present my message. What time of the day will you be presenting? Now that is huge. I have to say, if I had my choice, I would always choose the morning. I've had it where, because of different reasons, I've had to do it in the afternoon. And what that's meant is, anecdotally I've found, in the afternoon people are not as awake, not as alert, not as interested. I once had a group of mid-20s, people in their mid-20s, very enthusiastic individuals, but it was Friday evening. And I can tell you, there's only one place they wanted to be. It wasn't necessarily listening to my presentation, so it took a lot of skill to bring their focus back to the present and get them to listen. And I hung my hat on this structure that we're talking about today. What are they experiencing before they see you? So if you are presenting, if possible, it's not always possible, but if you can, try and get there earlier and see what are they going through in the half an hour leading up to listening to you. Are they at the desk working? Are they out on the road? Are they listening to another speaker who has a very different style to you, perhaps? I once went to a presentation and saw the person before me, and they were very slow in their talking. There was a lot of data, and the audience didn't move. There was a lot of sitting, listening, but not a lot of interaction. So I changed the opening of my presentation to involve an activity which involved movement and talking to the person next to you, simply because I had to get these people moving. I had to get their energy a little more flowing there, or they would have fallen asleep by the time I started. So that comparison and what they're seeing before you feeds into the strategy of how you'll open up your presentation. The second thing, you can see there it says my main objective. Now, the most powerful technique I can suggest on that is to create a written statement of the desired outcome, expressed in terms of what actions you want your audience to take as a result of your presentation. Now, basically, imagine you're filming it like a director. And as a director, you are working out the scene. And that scene is what the audience experiences the moment your presentation finishes. Do they turn to their friend and say, God, that was boring? Do they head back to their office and instruct their PA to place the order? Do they head back and wait for your email, which will tell them the next step to take? What do you want them to experience in that short period right after your presentation? There's an old saying in presenting which has a certain amount of truth to it, and it goes something like this. They won't remember what you told them. They won't remember what you did. but they'll certainly remember how you made them feel. And you've got a certain period of time where your presentation has had an impact. That's the time to secure the next action you want. If it's a sales presentation, if it's putting towards some kind of investment, whether it's trying to get investment from them, access to resources, whatever it is, there's a window there. Be very specific on what you want them to do as a result of that. So let's look next. Your presentation structure. Now, I'm going to go online here and show you a couple of resources I've found very, very helpful. TED.com, if you haven't heard of it, is just a fantastic resource for presentations from very interesting places. Now, you can see that it's got Bono. He's got a play. So if Bono's listening to it, maybe it's good for you. There's all sorts of different presentations. And I would encourage you to go in and listen to how they open their presentation, because there's a number of techniques you can use. The purpose of opening a presentation is to get their attention. I'm just going to go back to the PDF here, and let's zero in on this. You're opening. Your goal is to get their attention. There's a number of things you can use. You can use a story, a statistic, an audio-visual tool such as YouTube or TED, a question or an activity. And I'd encourage you, if you could, to try out different openings to see which one will resonate with an audience, if you have that chance. If you don't, then that's fine. If you're someone who gets a little bit nervous when presenting, then I would really recommend you open with a question, because the question puts the focus back on the audience. It takes it off you for a moment. So actually write out different questions you might want to ask as an opening. Now, even then, you've got to be careful, and I'll just give you an example here. Pardon me, I'll just go back to the PowerPoint. Now, the question you really want to have is something like, give you an example here. You wouldn't want to ask, who has had a coffee in the last 3 minutes? Because the chances are very low they've had it. It's got to be questions that are kind of like, who here has had a mother type questions. Questions which really go towards something you know will connect with them. And it might be something like, who here in the last 3 to 4 months has had some kind of negative interaction as a customer, whether it's on the phone, face to face. And be very, very specific, but make it relatable to them in a way where most people can say, yeah, that was probably me. Now, going back to our PDF here, when asking a question like that, you also have a bit of a limit, in my opinion. This is not written in stone, but I've found if you ask more than 2 to 3 questions, let's say 3, if you ask more than 3 questions, before you start giving information, the audience will start to get very annoyed with you. They'll start to feel like it's a telemarketing ringing up for a survey. So you've got to be careful there, but it's perfectly fine as an opening to start with a question. You might want to say, let's say you've got an audience that is quite reserved, and you ask the question, but no one actually answers. That's one of the concerns when asking questions. What if no one wants to answer? Well, that's when you look in the audience for a smiling face, for an expressive, animated face, what I call someone who is a giver. And you would then point them out and say, look, can I ask your name? Let me ask you this question. If you had ... and ask them the question, but you never ask it from someone who is sitting there incredibly stony-faced, giving you nothing. You only ask it from people who are animated, because they'll be more likely to respond, because that's more of their style. A few points there on story, and I think story is the best way to open, hands down. And you could use things like a YouTube clip to demonstrate that story, but I've got to give you a warning there. If you ever use audiovisual equipment, the danger is it fails. I've had this. And you've got to be prepared that it will fail and you can still have an impact. So unless you're really certain of your technology, I would go with a story you tell with your words, not necessarily with a picture up in front of you. You could also use an activity, and my personal favorite there is activities that get people moving and interacting, even if it's just a stretch. Not a massage where I see some presenters. Turn to the person and massage. I don't think that's a great idea. That might be crossing too many boundaries. But to actually just say, look, have a stretch, turn to the person next to you, ask them what's one thing they've enjoyed so far about attending this day, this training, this conference, this country, this city, whatever it is. The next point is to then go to the subject. And I want you to imagine for a moment that, and I'll go back to the blank PowerPoint I've got here. They're looking at the subject. And here's what most people would have as an example. They would have, let's say it's talking about vegetarianism. Or maybe something like becoming vegetarian. Becoming a vegetarian. In other words, do you see how boring that kind of subject heading is? Basically, the subject is the headline of an ad. You think of it like that. Let's imagine people are looking at a whole list of different presentations they could attend at a conference, and I've been in this situation, where they'll judge and decide whether or not they're going to come to your presentation based on your title, your subject title. So it's critical you have a title that is interesting, that creates a bit of curiosity. Don't try and be mysterious. That only works if you have a tremendous celebrity status with these people. For example, if you were Steven Spielberg, you could pretty much put ABC as your topic and people will turn up. But if they don't know you that well as a celebrity or as an identity, it's way too risky to try and be mysterious. Be very, very specific and communicate some kind of benefit. There's a great resource that helps you with that. Let's have a look up here. It's highly likely you've heard of Amazon.com. Now, Amazon still, I think books are still their largest product in terms of volume that they sell. That may have changed since I last checked those stats. But a good thing is to actually look at books on your topic. So let's say I type this in, vegetarian. And you'll notice that the results tend to come up in order of relevance. And what I get you to do is actually play around with that a little bit and say, all right, let's change it to new and popular, for example. The keyword is popular. And this is interesting. Look at this one here, Forks Over Knives. That's kind of an interesting title. I think that's based on a documentary, but I could be wrong on that. If I go in here, what you're looking for is keywords they've used to sell their book, because we do judge a book by its cover. So if I scroll down here, okay, here's the book description. The secret is out if you want to lose weight, lower cholesterol, and prevent or even reverse chronic conditions. The right food is your best medicine. Thousands of people have cut out meat, dairy, and oils and seen amazing results. If you're among them, or you'd like to be, you need this cookbook. Now, leave aside any initial responses you have to it that sounding somewhat hypey in the way it's... I don't think hypey is a word, I've made that up. It seems to have a lot of hype in the way it's put together. Look for some of the techniques. Straight away, it's trying to get you interested by communicating some very, very specific benefits that a lot of people can relate to. A lot of people can relate to losing weight, lowering cholesterol, preventing chronic conditions such as heart disease. They've also chosen type 2 diabetes. That's one of the fastest growing diseases in the world. So they're casting a net wide to get as many people interested as possible, but still they're being very specific. And what I'd suggest you do is two techniques that are really important in creating the title of your presentation, the subject heading. I'll go back to our sheet here. Here they are. Firstly, utilize the what's in it for me techniques in your subject. So the moment they read this subject heading, is it telling them what's in it for them to listen more? And you saw that in that example here. If you're among them, or you'd like to be, you need this cookbook. And there's a lot of potential benefits along there. Lose weight, cholesterol, etc. And the other thing is, a good technique is also to ensure you have the you, the actual word you, in your subject. By doing that, it's going to have some kind of phrase or words coming after it that will be about the audience, and you automatically increase your chances of actually making sure the title of your presentation is targeted at your audience. You would be profoundly surprised how many people ignore this very, very simple point. It must not be about you, the speaker, it's about them, the audience. What's in it for them? And as I say, a great technique to make sure you actually do that in that sentence is to have the word you in there. And that'll send your mind in that direction of really making it about what's in it for them. So the next thing we'll look at is agenda. We'll look at that in the next tutorial, so just click on that underneath this one and start thinking, what are some of the examples you've seen of this working well or not working well? Very often, we can easily think of scenarios where it hasn't worked, where people haven't opened a presentation with any kind of strategy to get their attention. And very quickly, the audience starts very politely texting others on their phone as a way to occupy their mind elsewhere. The attention span of your audience is very, very fragile. There are many things competing for their attention. So keep that in mind as you piece together